speak only when you're spoken to. Never reach your force. If by submission in the youth while they still have no choice. If what equals out for bullshit and been posted out. A wealth of worthless backbone off your viral life about. You are the system we hold in contempt. And we close our minds to the lies you present. Take for annihilation. Calculated imagination. Take for annihilation. We'll accept no deviation. Take for annihilation. You call this an education. Take for annihilation. Mandatory suffocation to fire backwards system. Show my heresy. Education through life, space, exposure, and adequacy. If what equals output, nothing in means selling out. You can't think about real life, then what are we learning about? You are the system which we attack. Why you stand behind us to stop us and come back?
Alrighty, welcome to Wednesday Night Musical Osmosis, the reboot, the revamp, the unrehearsed re-education of recycled thought. It's our second week back, and I am your benevolent host, Nick the Saucy One Catsaurus, formerly of the band Even Steven. And I'm also going to be queuing in here in just a moment my new co-host, but my old friend, Odell Norman, formerly of Onus and the Fallen One. And we want to formally welcome you to the show tonight. All righty, and somewhere in the background, I think Dee is lurking back there, our producer, who keeps the show.
It's not really fair because you guys have all been in a band, and I haven't. You know why? Well, no, I guess for a little while I was part of Countryside, but that was just because I was really desperate to have somebody to sing with.
And you've got a hell set of pipes on you too, so it's not like you're selling yourself short. You're an excellent singer.
It's just really hard down here anyway. It's really hard to find everywhere I've been. It's really hard to find a good band that's willing to have a female lead. Some places, you know, it's just, and here's one of those places.
Got to build your own project from the ground up. That's what I've always done. Anyways, I was giving you props because you keep all of our shows, and we have 3 podcasts, and now we have 4. We've brought Musical Osmosis back from the dead. And you keep the show from going off the rails. You saved my ass last week when I forgot the mic was on. So don't discount yourself. Odell, are you with us?
Yes. What's up, man?
Nothing, man. Let me tell you,
ID.
Even though the other night I got a really bad haircut, I'm in a really kick-ass mood.
Hey,
you know how you feel lousy when you get a bad haircut?
You can still get haircuts.
Yeah, true that. But Sunday, we had my favorite TV show of all time is Soap. Loved that show growing up. I connected with it because I came from a very fucked up, dysfunctional family, but there was still a lot of love there. That was kind of a mock soap opera for anybody who's not familiar with it and not 100 years old like us. Excellent show. It launched the career of Billy Crystal. Richard Mulligan was on it, Katherine Hellman. I got a chance to talk with comedian and ventriloquist. I sound like Daffy Duck when I say that. Ventriloquist. Jay Johnson from Soap. I spent an hour with him. It was an absolute delight. And then tonight, I get to speak with my all-time favorite lyricist. We get to speak with, I should say, but it's a big deal to me because he had such an impact on my writing style and politics, political awareness, I should say. Al Pist. You know, of course, he's from the Pist, one of my favorite bands, East Coast Panic, God's Left Hand. He's currently in M13 and the Deacons. Odell, were you a huge Pist fan back in the day when we used to all party together?
Well, you got me into him, and then Ben Story got me into him. But it's funny because, you know, the days of the cassette tapes, a lot of stuff that I dubbed didn't have names to it. And then when I went back and, like, listened to a lot of the music, I'm like, oh, my gosh, I have that. Or I had that on a compilation, or I had this. So it's really cool because if you, especially, you know, a lot of the stuff that the Pist wrote, it's very relevant today, which is, I'm really glad that we have Al on to talk about a lot of stuff because a lot of things that were written back in those days is still super relevant now. So
yeah, maybe even more relevant today since it's on a lot more
Yeah.
people's radar. Where back then, if you
Yeah.
kind of talked about it, people were like, "Go back to Russia, you commie." But now
Yeah, exactly.
there's more awareness where you can actually speak about it. All right, here's the deal, guys. I'm going to go through real fast what we got coming up on the show. It was a situation on Sunday where it took us. The show is blown up to the point where we're booked solid to the end of the year, and we've got so many guests coming on. It took Dee like 20 minutes to go through like who's going to be on what show, what date.
Yeah,
Check out
it
our
was
show
bad.
pages. Let me just rattle it off real quick. Musical Osmosis, we've got coming up this month, Larry from Pegboy. Next month, Murray-O from the Orwells. We're doing a special, we might even do 90 minutes, if not the standard 60 minutes, show about Wilmer's Park. If you guys,
Yeah.
a lot of you don't know Wilmer's Park, it was the place to be, outdoor venue. I've actually put together a few festivals out there when I was doing Little Guy Productions. Lots of great bands came through there. It's kind of a underground legend. So some of you
Everybody
may
knows
have heard it.
Wilmer's Yeah.
It's in Brandywine, Maryland, and I think it's been heard of nationwide, even though it was in a local kind of podunk type town. But we're going to be talking about that. My buddy Jason from, back in those days, Dying Fetus, but he's now in Misery Index will be calling in. JR from Next Step Up will be calling in stories. My buddy Jimmy Swader actually suggested this. I want to give a shout out to him because he was like, dude, you've got to do a show about the history of Wilmer's Park. And there is a history there, right, Odell?
There's a serious history. I mean, not even just what Nick is rattling off, but I mean, acts like James Brown has played there. I mean, like some mega stars have hit Wilmer's Park sometime.
The birth
in their
of
career.
Go-Go out of that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
So not just James Brown, but Chuck Brown, too.
Chuck Brown.
Junkyard
Rare
Pleasure,
Essence
all
lived there.
those bands.
Yep.
Rare Essence, all that stuff came from out of that area. And Wilmer's Park was a spot to be, dude, and dealing with those guys. It was kind of shady when I used to throw shows there, but still it was a great place to put on a show.
It was.
Kettle of Fish, who do we got coming on there? Cyrus McQueen, who's a comedian. Who else, Dee? Who am I forgetting? Graham Elwood from Comedy Film Nerds
We've
is
got
coming up.
comedian Trenton Whitley. Oh, of course, next November 1st, we have from this season of America's Got Talent, one of the finalists, comedian Gary Veeder, super funny guy. And then we've got Alex White of White Mystery, which will be just a couple weeks after we go see them in concert.
And this Sunday we've got, or not this Sunday, but next Sunday we've got Professor Ronald Mallett.
We're
going to talk about time travel because this is the month Michael J. Fox went Back to the Future. And we were promised flying cars, and instead we got shitty Matthew McConaughey commercials.
Exactly.
So bravo, America. Bravo, America.
Friday Night Drunken Trivia, really quick. Next Friday we have John Bass with Time Travel Trivia. He is formerly of Big Time Hollywood, Florida, on Comedy Central, and he is having a movie come out next month, also starring Eliza Dushku, Jane looks for a husband, or I can't remember the name of it. He'll tell us all about it, I'm sure. We're going to have Graham Elwood on from Comedy Film Nerds and from the documentary Earbuds. And we're also going to have Brian Marchak from Rooftop Revolutionaries and comedian Cyrus McQueen, all on Friday Night Drunken Trivia.
Oh, is he on trivia? Sorry, yeah, a couple of those guys are on trivia.
Yeah.
Plus, we're doing a special Democratic debate wrap-up show on Saturday. Author Mike Bushman will be on there. Shameless plug, if you go check out his book, Doing Unto Others. I actually wrote the foreword for that, so pick it up if for no other reason to read my 4 or 5 page foreword. And then we're having Eleanor Goldfield from Rooftop Revolutionaries and Act Out on Ignorance Equation coming up too. And I'm sure we're probably forgetting somebody somewhere along the line. But check our pages, check our Twitter. We got tons of platforms out there. All righty, tonight we've got Al Pist on, as I like to usually do when we have a guest on that I particularly feel excited about. And I don't want people to think I just kind of book people by pulling names out of hats. Everybody I book on the music show and on the Kettle of Fish show, all these people I feel like I have a personal connection with as far as how they've impacted me. So I like to set it up, give a little story, set the Wayback Machine, tell people why it was important for me. One of the reasons I actually brought back Musical Osmosis was I finally was able to reach out to Al and kind of put this show together.
That's
so, what was it, 94, 95? Pat Sheehan, who is my musical guru. Does anybody know more about music, especially punk music, than Pat Sheehan, Odell?
No, Pat. And if you don't know, he will give you, you know, the full, you know, back in those days, the encyclopedia of all the bands. So.
Yeah,
if you wanted it or not.
Yeah, it's almost like the crying game with Pat. He will tie you to a fucking chair and indoctrinate you like Clockwork Orange with his musical onslaught of knowledge. But anyways, he's taking me up to work. I was a pasta boy at Olive Garden in the mid-'90s. And like you said earlier, this is in the day of the cassette tape. He only had a cassette player, so he took all his CDs and put them on cassette. And here's why I remember the first time I heard the Pist, because usually when I hear a new band, now if it's a band I'm already into, I can dig it as soon as I listen to something new by them. But if it's somebody I've never heard before, it usually takes 3 or 4 listens for it to really connect with me. I don't know if you're the same way, Odell.
It's a natural thing. Yeah, it's a natural thing. There's a handful of bands that the first time I heard them, I was like, holy cow, okay, yeah, this is something, you know, I need to get a hold of.
Yeah, and that's how I felt with the Pist. Like, it was really a situation where I heard them that first, and I even remember the first song I ever heard was Customer Is Always Right, and I was heading off to my shitty job, and I was like, holy shit, who are these guys? And Pat was like, they're the Pist. They formed in this year, and Al Pist does this, and his father's uncle was a baker, and gave me the whole fucking history of anything that ever had to do with the Pist, because he knows all that shit. And I went out to Smash. If you remember Smash down in D.C., I'm sure you are.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, bought the CD.
That was a pilgrimage.
Yes, we made a pilgrimage every couple of weeks down to Georgetown, went to Smash, got the CD, got Ideas Are Bulletproof, and, you know, I had my shitty little apartment in La Plata, dimly lit. Mm-hmm. The sleeve is as such, where you open it, it's not multiple pages opening, it's 2 pages, and there's lyrics for like 15 songs on it. So the writing is really small. And to this day, dude, I think I got my fucking stigmatism from reading those lyrics. Like sitting in my dimly lit apartment, just playing that CD over and over again and squinting and looking at those lyrics for hours on end and replaying that album, trying to get it down verbatim. But that album had a huge impact on, you know, it just kind of grabbed me, violently shook me, woke me up, and was like, dude, there's more going on. This isn't just about, like, drinking beer and getting fucked up and having a good time. There's a whole big, giant world out there going on, and, like, you need to become aware of it. And it's a huge reason why, like, I went and got my political science degree years later. When I wrote for even Steven, you know the kind of stuff I wrote, like office politics and mall security and downtown bus. Like, that's straight out of the Al Pist playbook. Not that I was ripping him off, but it was definitely, like, inspired by Al. And he has such a direct, brutally honest way. Like, I call him cash and carry lyrics. Like, he's a cash and carry type of lyricist. You listen, you don't have to do, like, all these metaphors and stuff. It's just straightforward, brutally honest music. And it resonated with me, man. And I was like, wow, this is what it's about. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just remember, Ideas Are Bulletproof, and I remember Dead in Its Tracks, and that was the one song that grabbed me because just being an African-American kid, you know, doing what I was doing and a lot of stuff that was going on and it happened to me, I'm like, man, these guys get it. And if it wasn't for that and bands like Los Crudos and Inside Out, those bands that were, like you said, were very politically charged and very, like, straight on, and, like, I could relate to that because of just where I was coming from and you know, the treatment you would get when you go to certain areas and the prejudging and stuff like that. And I was like, man, they're saying what I'm thinking, and these are white guys. That's what really got me. It was like, holy cow, this is like crazy. And I'm, like, sitting there nodding my head over and over to those songs, and it's like I said earlier, you know, that's why, you know, this stuff is so relevant now just as much as it was, you know, in 94 and 95.
Absolutely.
And those times as well. So.
And that's the stuff that really encodes your DNA and as being a child and a young adult. And I was in my early 20s when I first got turned on to the Pist, maybe mid-20s, probably mid-20s. when I got turned, and that really encodes your DNA and stuff like that. And reading Marvel's X-Men and reading about like the X-Men were just a metaphor for discrimination and that sort of thing. Like these are the things that caused me to become politically and socially aware.
Right.
Anyways, we should digress before Al hangs up because he thinks we're going to turn into a bunch of stalker, freaky fanboys or something. So let's get him on the line and not leave him hanging on any longer. Al, are you with us?
Well, I'm with you. How you guys doing?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. We are so excited to have you on the show tonight.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely excited to be on here talking with you guys.
Good.
Right
good.
on.
So cool.
Let me start with this because you heard the intro, you heard the impact that your music, your lyrics had on me. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the world. I'm sure there's many people like me. I want to kind of go back to the beginning when you formed the Pist, when you're writing these politically charged lyrics, when you're putting the music together. Are you doing it with the intent of, hey, man, I need to raise awareness, I need to wake people the fuck up and bring people together? Or are you just frustrated and you're like, I need to get this out of my system and this is how I create?
No, absolutely the second. It was just ideas that I had kind of rattling around in my head for a few years prior to that. And I had been in other bands before, but never as a singer or a lyricist. So usually someone else had always taken care of the message behind the music in the bands. So yeah, I mean, I just had things that I was feeling, as a young man, and I think I was 22 when we first started the Pist. So I was starting to form my own opinions about things and just the way I felt about society in general and everything that was going on around me, and just started putting them down on paper, and the band sort of just came together.
Do you think that as somebody, especially performing in the punk genre, that you have a responsibility to kind of be socially conscious? Or is it okay just to go out and sing about, let's get drunk, let's party and do this? Or do you think because it is a punk culture, you kind of do have a responsibility to, have a free exchange of ideas and kind of get people thinking?
Well, I felt like that's what I needed to do. I don't, I like a lot of bands and a lot of songs that don't really have a political message behind them. I have nothing against that kind of music, and I think it definitely has its place in the scene and in society as a whole. But I felt that wasn't what my message was and what I wanted to get across. There was a lot of bands in Connecticut at the time, which is where we were based out of.
Right.
That were more like pop punk bands and had that East Bay sound that was big back in the early 90s. And we liked that type of music. It just wasn't, we were listening to more of like the Subhumans and the Dead Kennedys and bands like that. So we kind of we made the band that we wanted to go see. That's pretty much how the Pist formed. There was a lot of bands that were coming through on tour, bands like MDC, and they had all the pop punk bands opening for them because there weren't any political punk bands at the time in the area. I mean, there was a couple, but you couldn't put the same band on every show. So that's kind of where we were at. We're like, let's make the band that we want to go see play with these bands, and we made that band, and we ended up getting all those shows as they came through.
So
I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I know you were talking about you guys are from Connecticut, and I was like going through a lot of your catalog and actually a lot of the show pages and things, and it seems like that community feel is still there. I know you're like us. You're sort of the elder statesman, if you will. How does that make you feel when you see a lot of the younger bands that have actually looked up to you, and you still go out and see them feel when they see someone like you there at their shows?
Oh, it's great because when we were coming up, that's what we were doing with the bands that had been around before us. There was a whole scene in Connecticut that when we were teenagers, we would go see all these bands. Local bands, CIA, 76% Uncertain, Lost Generation, all these old school Connecticut hardcore and punk bands that, we would go see, and they kind of paved the way for us, and we were the next wave coming through. So now it's all these younger bands are coming through, having seen us and other bands from our era. They started their own bands, and now they're carrying the torch, and it's great. And I'm glad that it's going, and it's still going. And we've definitely seen that with these last run of reunion shows that we did, just talking to a lot of the younger bands that we ended up playing with or that were coming to see us.
Do you feel like the punk scene is still as socially conscious as it was back in the 80s and 90s? Because I feel like everything has kind of got homogenized to a point where I feel like it's a lot of its individuality. That you can't say, well, this is this type, and it's good in some ways because labels fucking suck, but it's also bad in a way where you don't have that united front, I feel like, that you used to have in a punk scene where you're like, I can go do this, I can go see these guys, and I know that I'm kind of with my tribe. And I feel like a little bit of that has been lost. Do you feel the same way with the youth of today?
I think that around here there is sort of a unity, at least. And Connecticut's kind of been, since it's such a small state, it's maybe an anomaly. We definitely do have a unified scene here. There are the outliers and stuff, but there's definitely like a core political punk scene in Connecticut with about maybe a dozen bands that all play together. Everybody hangs out together. I mean, at this point, being almost 46 years old, I'm not hanging out with these bands on weekends and stuff. I'm
right.
I'm doing other things. Playing with my own bands, but. But yeah, so I think that there's still that scene here, at least here.
So looking back at the past lyrics, I mean, do you feel like you've changed a lot as far as your political views and just your worldview? Or you still kind of got that piss and vinegar it seems to me like shit's just as corrupt, if not more corrupt than ever. Do you still carry that with you, or with age have you kind of softened up on all that?
No, I definitely think I still feel a lot of the anger at things that are happening around us. As a matter of fact, and some of the songs that we played on this, we did 6 reunion shows this summer, and
wow.
just around the Northeast, and we got all the way down to Richmond was our furthest south that we got, but a few of the songs that I sort of prefaced with, I wish that, this song was not still relevant, but it is, unfortunately. And
it is.
There's a lot of songs like that issues that were going on 20 years ago are still going on now. I think the only thing in me that's really changed is that I maybe see more sides to the story with certain things, but I still have the same feelings that I did. I still stand behind, just about everything I wrote down 20 years ago.
Are you pretty well received when you guys do your reunion tours? Does the younger generation get it? Or are they just like, well, here's a fast, hard band, and I'm just going to bob my head? Or do they know the lyrics? Are they singing it back to you? Do they understand the cultural significance of it? Or are they just kind of there to blow off steam?
I think it's half and half. There's definitely a core of people that come to see us that we've done reunion shows. We did some 5 years ago, and we did some a few years before that. And, you see those same people there. You see younger people who are into it, and they're up there singing along and stage diving and, just talking to us after the show, about, same kind of story that you were saying in the intro, about how, songs that they heard in the past, helped shape them in a certain way, which is really amazing to hear. I think, and, you're going to get half the people are just there because it's a punk show and there's a lot of people and it's fast music and they can run around and smash into each other and, and get drunk and whatever.
It is kind of odd, though. The biggest thing that I've noticed is everything in politics, and I don't want to turn this into a political show. We do a political show. But in the context of music, everything in politics has gone so far right or so far left, but more so in the so far right category, that lyrics that I used to write in a punk band 20 years ago, people would hear them and be like, "Oh, go back to Russia, commie." But now they would be like, "Oh, you could play this at the Tea Party rally. Like, this is screw the government." And it's really weird how we've had that shift. And I just feel like you have all these groups speaking out against the government, but none of them are consolidated. All of them are like, "No, my hate or mistrust of the government trumps your hate and mistrust of the government." And it's this really weird dichotomy that's developed over the last few years, right?
Oh, sure. I mean, when Bush was president, if you spoke out against the president or the office of the presidency or the government, then you were labeled a traitor and everything else. And now if you speak out against the president, you're a patriot.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's amazing. Yeah, you hit it right on the head with that. As far as you say, especially during the times of Bush, with 9/11 and all, especially when that happened. That sort of was like, okay, everything is pro-U.S., but like a lot of the same views. You have a president now that has a lot of similar views to, like, even for, say, a Ronald Reagan, and it's like it's so, like, they don't want to hear that. It's like, well, actually his views are very similar to the guy that you preach about all the time, but they're like, no, it can't be, it won't happen, it's not like that. And but I know you were talking about playing with a lot of the DC bands and things of that nature. How were your experiences in DC, being that, like, Nick and I are from that area?
I mean, back when the Pist was together as a band, we only played in DC proper, I think, once with a band called the Suspects, who were around.
Yes, the Suspects.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, as far as I remember, it was a great show. We were back there a couple of years ago with my current band M13, and who's also a very politically charged band. And it seemed like the crowd at the show, they were kind of taken aback by some of the political things that our singer was saying, and seemed a little proper, and I don't know. It seemed like they kind of stick up their ass about about being too far to the left, or just being too radical about things. And that was kind of just the impression I got there. Not so much a little further down in Baltimore, but definitely got that impression in DC.
Well, it's amazing because.
No, go ahead, Odell. No, you go ahead.
Okay. I actually, I live in Baltimore now, so it's amazing because a lot of the bands that were in the crowd that was in DC, a lot of those artists and fans, they actually, like you said, they've actually moved to Baltimore and do more shows like that in Baltimore than they do in DC now, which it amazes me because coming from, Nick and I lived in Southern Maryland, which is not too far away from DC, and that bond that DC used to have, and I think I could speak for Nick in saying that as the years went by, you could actually see that generation sort of just leave, and then
every club we played at closed down. They're all gone. Yeah. And the clubs we used to go to, like 930 and Black Cat, they've moved and become something totally different. So there's definitely been a huge shift in that area.
And Baltimore took it on, so it's really cool. As far as that.
So what do you think is the biggest difference, Al, when you look at the crowd today, the crowd of late teens, early 20s coming to your shows today as opposed to 20 years ago? Is it that they're a little bit more reserved and proper, or is it that they don't get, like, are they getting it? Like, what is the huge difference between those two generations?
I think that what I see now a lot is that I see a lot of people that it seems like they're more there to party and stuff, and it's more of a social thing than to watch bands. and to get a message from them. While a lot of the bands are political bands, you know, they have a lot of good messages, it seems like most of the time everybody's outside drinking in the parking lot while bands are playing. And that may be nothing new. You know, I'm sure that's always happened, but you know, and that's always been a problem that I've seen that as a problem at shows, where, you know, it's kind of like a lot of bands are background music to everybody partying.
Wow. What keeps you motivated then to keep at 46? I know you've got a family, and I'm sure you've got other responsibilities, so this has got to take a lot of your time and energy. What keeps you motivated to do it if the crowd is just not the crowd that you played to 20 years ago?
It's a really good question. I mean, I just feel like it's what I do. It's just part of me. I love to go out and play shows, whether it's to 10 people or, you know, 500 people. I get something out of it myself, just being on stage and play, whether it's singing or playing bass, which I do now in the two bands that I'm in. You know, I prefer to sing, I think.
Yeah.
But it's definitely more of a commitment, and physically, and it's more of a commitment as far as, you know, writing songs and kind of being the spokesperson for the band when you're doing that. But yeah, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't playing in bands. You know, it's just part of my being.
Well, I grew up listening to the Pist. I did a little bit of research. I knew who the Deacons were, but I actually had never even heard of East Coast Panic. I started going through and kind of looking at the different projects you were involved in, and you're like a fucking maniac. You have so many bands, so much content, and I was just like, wow, like, what is the timeline from the Pist to East Coast Panic to God's Left Hand? What is kind of like the timeline of each band? Are they all bleeding into each other, or are you breaking from one and going to the other one? What's that look like?
I could tell you the genesis of everything. When during the intro, I know Odell was talking about the old cassette mixtapes.
Yeah.
I had my best friend when we were in, this is going back to 1984. My best friend Rich, who I grew up with, had a cousin in New Jersey who was older than us and used to send him mixtapes, and they were all hardcore punk bands from Jersey and from everywhere else. You know, we heard a lot of, you know, MDC, Minor Threat, Black Flag, all the stuff that we couldn't get when we were, you know, 12, 14 years old.
Right.
Why didn't you just go on the internet, Al, and download it?
Oh, yeah. Well, if I thought of that, man, it would have been so much easier. And him and I just started, you know, I had gotten a guitar and we started just making noise. Like, I had no idea how to play a guitar. And we started writing a couple songs together just as a band called Malicious Intent at the time. And we didn't really play or really record anything, but that was kind of the how the ball got rolling. And a few years later, we actually started a proper band called Process of Elimination. And that was Rich singing and me playing bass, and this guy Greg, who was playing drums, who years later ended up being in the Seattle straight edge band Trial.
Whoa!
He was, you know, Greg Bennick, who sings for Trial. He was our drummer, and from that band kind of broke up when Greg went off to college, and I joined a hardcore band, like kind of like a metal sort of hardcore band called Darkest Exit, which lasted a couple more years until I moved to Arizona for a short time. And while I was in Arizona, the singer guy Rich, who I started this whole thing with, started a band in Connecticut called Brutally Familiar. And when things didn't work out the way I thought they would out in Arizona, I came back, and Brutally Familiar was already established. And I started the Pist with the guitarist from Brutally Familiar. So it was kind of the way a lot of the bands worked in Connecticut at the time, where everybody, it was very incestuous. You know, everybody was in a couple bands at the same time, and especially drummers were shared throughout many.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, right, Odell?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was Nick's resident drummer for a few stints.
Yep. Yeah, and so that's how the Pist started. And Brutally Familiar was getting ready to go on a tour, so we kind of just got our act together and got a set together and said, you know, all right, we'll jump on tour with you guys. And we jumped in the van and went on a 5-week tour and played 13 shows in 5 weeks. Because, you know, as you know, this was 93, and, you know, back before the internet or cell phones or anything, you know, it was shows were hard to come by. Things were very sketchy. You'd show up and, you know, the show that you thought was happening wasn't happening.
Yeah.
You know, after driving, you know, 12 or 14 hours to a show, things were getting canceled along the way. But, you know, we built the foundation on that tour of all our tours to follow. And from that came bands like Mankind, which I played bass in. After Brutally Familiar broke up, Rich, the singer, started a band called God Squad, which I played bass in, while also playing bass in another band called the Baltimore Foot Stompers.
Wow.
With Jim Martin, who was in a lot of bands like Broken and Malachi Crunch, and is currently in Chemtrails. Mm-hmm. Then kind of when all those bands started to fade out, East Coast Panic started, and that was me and my now wife, Jen, started that band with the drummer from the Pist and a couple of our friends. And that went for a few more years, and once that broke up, that's when I started doing like solo stuff, you know, kind of picked up the acoustic guitar because I was getting fed up with, you know, all the bands I was in falling apart after a couple of years. So I was like, that's it, you know, that's it. I'm going solo. I don't have to worry about relying on anyone else anymore. So
yeah, I know that feeling. Let me play. I want to play this song by East Coast Panic because I can't believe you guys were never on my radar before, and I actually found 4 of your songs on MySpace. One of them was the song Polluted you sent me, and I was like, okay, man, I've heard a couple bands that's had kind of a guy and a girl both singing, switching off, but I've never heard it done like this. I got to tell you, man, I mean, of course, the Pist is still my all-time favorite out of all of them, but East Coast Panic is no joke. You guys were freaking awesome. And I'm glad I got
that was my favorite band to play in, I think.
Really? How come? Well, more than the Pist? How come?
I don't know. I just think that the chemistry of the band and the songs that we were singing, the collaboration between everybody in the band, where the Pist was essentially me and the guitarist writing everything. He would write all the music. I would write all the lyrics. You know, our drummer and bass player we were great friends and everything, but it wasn't as much of a collaboration with everybody. Okay. East Coast Panic was that. We all wrote together. We all, you know, it was, I don't know, it was more fun, I think, even though the Pist was great and fun. I just, you know.
Well, that energy and unity definitely shines through. Let me play the song Polluted. I love the lyrics. Once again, it makes me feel like I was mining for Pist Gold and found this East Coast Panic. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I've never even heard these guys before. So I'm glad I have something new to dig into. So I'm going to play some Polluted by East Coast Panic. Here it comes, guys.
Gather in your clique, gather around the keg and fucking drink until you're sick. Let's all put on a
All righty. I got to tell you, Al, the symmetry of that band, the back and forth, it's so fucking good. It charges me up, makes me feel like I'm 24 instead of 44. Why in the hell did that band break up? Especially since you're with the singer, you're with who is your wife now. Why did you guys break up? That's an incredible amount of energy.
Yeah, well, when everybody is in their 20s, just about everybody was in that band, people aren't settled where they want to be in life yet. So, as things come up in their lives, people want to move away, relationships happen. Everybody just sort of ended up getting scattered. Our original drummer, who was the drummer for the Pist and the drummer on that recording, he moved out to L.A. At that time. So we replaced him with another drummer, and then in that recording I was playing bass and singing, and I decided I didn't want to do that, so we got a bass player, and then ended up that bass player had a kid, and he ended up leaving the band too, so it was, just losing too many people, too many lineup changes. We eventually just had to hang it up, but yeah, I definitely, I really did like the energy in that band, And,
yeah, that's incredible. Looking through your catalog of just so many bands, so much music, when you look back at that, you look at your lineage, what you're going to be able to pass on to your kids and say, hey, look at this. Look how I made my mark in the world. Look what I tried to do. Look how I tried to make the world a better place. Do you feel like you did what young Al set out to do? Do you kind of feel like mission accomplished?
To a certain extent. I think that there's definitely a legacy left. I think that there's definitely still more to do. And that's kind of, where I'm at right now with the bands that I'm in. Just the music is a little bit different than the stuff we've done before. I'm thinking that as these two bands that I'm in now are progressing, we're growing too, and hopefully leaving behind something like the old bands did. And I think when this conversation started, as you were saying, as a young kid listening to the stuff for the first time inspired you to do something. I think as long as you're leaving behind something that is inspiring somebody, then it's a success. So
yeah, couldn't agree more.
I'm happy with it.
Definitely. Hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
The bands that you play with now, or the younger band, who are some of the really good bands in Connecticut right now that you feel that should be out there, should be on the radar, if you will?
Yeah, there's definitely some great bands from around here. One of my favorite bands was a Connecticut-based band that just moved to Philly, actually, and they're called No. Really, really cool, just straight up, really fast, punk, hardcore kind of band. A little, they're not very, they don't really fall into any specific punk category, which I like. I like stuff that's a little different. There's some bands around here. Cry Havoc is a great band. Damn Broads, Chemtrails.
Yeah, I'm just finished watching a video of you guys. You doing a little guest appearance on stage at one of their shows back in the day.
Oh, okay, nice.
yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah. I mean, there's and also our drummer's band from Baltimore. Our drummer from Baltimore called War Games, and we played in our reunion shows. We played with them. I think 4 out of the 6 shows we played with War Games, and it was great to play with them. We played a great basement show in Baltimore about a month ago, and that was with War Games and a couple other bands. Sick Fix also from DC. Really had a good time with those guys.
So moving on to M13 and the Deacons.
Yeah.
How much of a change is it playing bass, and is it kind of stifling you creatively not to be able to write and get all of that out of you creatively, or is it like, hey, I kind of said what I want to say, I'm okay with receding into kind of the background and playing bass and just soldiering on?
Well, both M13 and the Deacons are fronted by my friend Rich, who is the guy whose cousin was feeding us mixtapes back in the early '80s. So,
right.
Oh wow.
You know, I'm pretty much behind anything he says. You know, we're kind of partners in crime in this punk rock deal. You know, we've been together in bands for forever. So yeah, I have no problem, you know, turning over the lyrical reins per se, you know, to him. And you know, I like playing bass. I like singing backup vocals, and you know, I put 100% into it when I'm doing it. And yeah, I enjoy it, you know, writing music instead of lyrics. But you know, I could definitely see something coming down, you know, soon, maybe where I might be involved in doing some writing, kind of getting back into it a little bit. But, you know, we had kind of spoken about this through email or before this show, but you know, I don't want to do anything where I'm rehashing, you know, things. I don't want to have, you know, all right, writing cop song number 5 and you know, writing, you know, whatever. You know, it's kind of counterproductive. I don't want to waste my time and other people's time with, you know, things that I've said before. They'll have a lot of the same feelings. If I can come up with a different way to say it or a new perspective to approach it from, then, you know, you might hear something from that, you know. We'll see.
Well,
see
you definitely did that solo in God's Left Hand, and I was listening to a bunch of God's Left Hand and just listening to the music and the writing in it. What was that process like? Because it is on such a different level than the previous stuff. What was that process like going into the solo and God's Left Hand type of stuff as far as writing style?
Well, you know, during this whole time, from, you know, listening to punk rock and being in the punk scene, you know, while that was all happening, I was also listening to other stuff, listening to, you know, like David Bowie and Jim Carroll Band, Lou Reed, Velvet Underground, Tom Waits, you know, Patti Smith, stuff like that. And I kind of, with the solo stuff and with with God's Left Hand, I was kind of showing that side of my influences more, I think. And so most of that God's Left Hand stuff was songs that I had written originally as just me with an acoustic guitar. And I wanted, you know, after doing that a few times, I don't enjoy playing by myself that much. So, you know, after kind of putting the whole band thing behind me because I didn't want to deal with being a band, I found out after a couple of years that I really want to be in a band. So I gathered a couple of friends together and, you know, showed them all the songs. They added some things to it. And, you know, that's how that came about. We played for a couple of years, never really caught on here in Connecticut. You know, I don't know, I think that people who came to see it were expecting something more like the Pist, and it was not that at all. And, you know, our drummer ends up moving out of the country, and, you know, that fell apart too. So that's what ended up getting back into playing in punk and hardcore bands.
Okay. All right, well, we've got a few minutes left. As being one of the elders now, and me and Odell actually talked about this before we did the first comeback episode, let's have a Miyagi moment here. Totally different world now. You're not kids today aren't pounding the pavement, stapling flyers on the telephone poles. You know, we've got social media. As one of the elders of punk now, and music in general, what advice do you have for the band starting out today? What can they do to increase their chances of going out there and getting their music out there and spreading the word and doing what they want to do?
I think it's just, I think not much. I mean, obviously the way promotion has changed, but I think if you just get out there, I mean, that's the whole thing. Get out there and play shows, you know, any shows. And be consistent, you know, don't, you know, it sounds corny to say, but just kind of, you know, be yourself and, you know, don't try to copy any other bands or any kind of styles. Write what comes from your heart, and just be real. And I think that if you do that and you're out there long enough, then they'll come to you. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have to really get out there and really kill it with the promoting and everything. I think that they say real recognizes real, right? And
that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
I know
you've
Odell.
actually. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I know I've kind of been monopolizing Al here. Do you have anything else to ask him? We got a couple minutes left.
No, I just wanted to say, you were talking about promotion. I noticed through social media, you guys have really grasped that and used that as quote unquote, flying, stapling things to the pole, or flying, tagging different places. I've noticed just looking at like your page and a few of the bands that you play with, they really take advantage of social media, and I think that's really good. I think a lot of bands, it's something that you look back on, you're like, man, if we had something like this, just 10 years ago, not even 20 years ago, it would be such a great help. And it looks like you guys really have embraced that and are using that to your advantage.
Well, we respect the promoters who put on the shows for us, so we try to do our part, and we don't ever do the ticket selling thing.
Right.
We get asked to be on a lot of shows, and then it's, oh yeah, well, how many tickets can you guys sell? Well, none, because that's your job,
That's exactly.
Yeah.
But so I mean, but we do whatever we can to try to promote the shows. If somebody's going to ask us to play at their club, or other bands are going to put us on for shows, then the least we can do is try to get the word out there. And if everybody did that, then shows would be a lot more successful.
Right.
Nice. All righty, Al, I want to thank you so much for coming in. Like I said, this is for 2 years. I was going on your page. I couldn't add you. I had no way of reaching you. Finally, I was like, holy shit, I can get a hold of Al now. I've got to bring the show back and start rocking and rolling. We've got so much on our plate, too. So I definitely want to thank you for coming in. Real quick,
yes, thank you
tell
so
everybody
much,
where they can find you, what you've got, upcoming projects, where you're playing, what you got going on.
Oh, okay. Well, the easiest way to find me is on Facebook. Even if Nick couldn't find us, we just if you search under Al Pist, I'll pop up. The Pist is on there, although we're not really doing any more shows. But if you want to check out if anything is coming up, we have a page on there. Facebook.com/M13Hardcore is M13, and I think it's the Deacons NYC. Both bands are based in Brooklyn, and that's about it right now.
Right on. I've got some Deacons on here, and I've got M13. What would you like to hear on the way out, Al? How do you want to
don't put me in that spot, because.
All right, I'm going to play Calling Out because I love anthem songs. I'm a big Unity guy, and this is the kind of song that just makes me want to grab my buddy next to me and sing along. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Once again, thank you, Al, and we'll be heading out with some Calling Out. Alrighty, guys, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Musical Osmosis tonight. We will be back in 2 weeks with Larry Dalmore from Peg Boy. Have a great evening, guys.